the hidden puppet master inside you, why emotions always win. We begin in silence, an ancient monastery carved into the side of a cliff, the wind screaming like forgotten spirits through stone corridors. In one of the chambers, a man sits cross-legged, eyes shut, unmoving. He's been there for 5 days, no food, no water, just stillness, just breath. Suddenly he opens his eyes, but what he sees isn't the room. It's his past, his pain, his fears. Everything he thought he had transcended comes roaring back in a single wave of unbearable emotion. That man was me. I went into that temple believing I could think my way to peace. That if I just meditated long enough, read enough books, trained my mind hard enough, I would master reality. But I was wrong. Because what I encountered in that silence wasn't ignorance. It was the truth that Hume discovered centuries ago: reason is, and ought only to be, the slave of the passions. In other words, our thoughts are not in charge, our emotions are, and that changes everything.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
We live in a world that worships intellect, logic, knowledge. We're taught to believe that if we just make the right decisions, follow the right steps, think clearly enough, we'll be free. But what if I told you that every decision you've ever made, every belief you've ever held, every opinion you defend with your whole chest was chosen not by your mind, but by your feelings? Would you believe me? Or would your mind start arguing right now, trying to protect the illusion of control? Here's the trap: we think our thoughts are steering the ship, but they're actually just the deckhands. The real captain is emotion. It's always been. Let me prove it to you. Think about the last time you made a bad decision. One that your logic clearly told you not to do. Maybe it was a relationship you knew was toxic, a job you knew wasn't right, a habit you swore you'd quit. You knew better, but you didn't feel better. And so you went back, and again, and again. That's not weakness. That's biology. That's psychology. That's spiritual law. Hume didn't just make a philosophical claim. He revealed one of the most profound spiritual truths ever spoken: that our intellect is not the master of our fate, it's the servant of our emotional state. And you can see this everywhere. Why do people change religions, political views, even worldviews after a single emotional experience? Because the emotion changes the narrative. The belief bends around the feeling, and never the other way around. We don't think our way into new emotions. We feel our way into new thoughts. And this is where your journey begins. Because if you don't see this, if you don't own this, your spirituality will always be shallow. It will always be performative. It will always be an armor of ideas hiding a battlefield of unhealed wounds. You'll meditate, pray, journal, even fast, but you'll still be a puppet. Because the strings aren't logic. The strings are feeling. And until you face the emotions that are pulling you, you will never be free. Now, here's where it gets deeper. If emotions are the masters of thought, then what is the master of emotion? That's where the real work begins. Because emotions don't come from nowhere. They come from the stories you carry, the traumas you haven't faced, the desires you haven't questioned, the fears you haven't named, and you can't outthink your way out of them. You have to go in, you have to walk into the fire, and into the hurt, into the shame, into the memories that still make your body flinch even when your face smiles. I remember the first time I admitted that I didn't know why I was angry all the time, that my logic was just a disguise, that my spiritual practices were just rituals to keep me from feeling what I was actually feeling. And when I finally sat with it, when I stopped running, stopped trying to fix, stopped trying to be enlightened, that's when I saw it. The little boy inside me, terrified, unseen, unloved. And suddenly it all made sense. Every decision, every failure, every mask. It all came from trying to protect a wound I never even knew I had. So let me ask you a question that might shake your soul. What emotions are really driving your life right now? Not the ones you show, the ones you hide, the ones you avoid, the ones that whisper in the dark when no one's around. Are they fear, guilt, resentment, loneliness, desire? Because those emotions are shaping your beliefs, your values, your entire identity. And if you don't know what they are, then you don't know who you really are. This is the power of what Hume uncovered. Not just a philosophical insight, but a spiritual mirror. A brutal, beautiful mirror that says, you are not who you think you are. You are who you feel you are. And until you heal those feelings, your mind will only serve your wounds. Your intellect will only protect your pain. Your thoughts will only justify your suffering. But here's the miracle. Once you see this, really see it, you can begin to change. Not by forcing your thoughts, but by healing your heart, by learning the language of emotion, by becoming intimate with your own inner world. And that's where real freedom lives. Not in controlling your thoughts, but in befriending your feelings. You don't need more logic. You need more honesty. You don't need more books. You need more presence. You don't need to think harder. You need to feel deeper. Because once you feel deeply enough, your thoughts will align. Your actions will shift. Your life will transform. Not from the top down, but from the inside out. So the next time you catch yourself trying to figure it out, stop. Ask instead, what am I feeling right now? What emotion is shaping this thought, this choice, this reaction? And when you find it, don't run. Don't shame it. Welcome it. Sit with it. Listen, because that emotion is the key to your freedom. That emotion is the teacher. That emotion is the master. And if you can learn to bow to it, not obey it blindly, but bow to it with awareness, you will unlock a power inside you that no philosophy, no ideology, and no belief system can ever give you. You will become sovereign, not over your thoughts, but through your feelings. Emotional gravity, why your heart is the real architect of your reality. So let's go deeper now, not into your mind, but into the soft, burning, sacred world beneath it. Because here's the truth we keep dancing around. Your thoughts are not floating freely in space. They orbit something. And that something is emotional gravity. Every idea you hold, every opinion you defend, every dream you chase, it's all being pulled by a force you likely didn't even choose. Your heart. Not the Hollywood version. Not the poetic symbol, but the raw, ancient emotional engine inside you that is constantly shaping the world you see. Let me explain it like this. Imagine your thoughts are planets. Beautiful, complex, spinning with information and logic and reason. But what are they orbiting? What's the sun at the center of that system? It's your feelings. And if that emotional sun is built on pain, fear, rejection, or unworthiness, then even the most brilliant thoughts will spiral in the wrong direction. You might say things like, "I'm not good enough," or "they'll never love me," or "the world is dangerous." And you'll believe those thoughts are rational, but they're not. They're just satellites caught in emotional gravity. The mind isn't lying. It's just orbiting the wrong star. So here's the question I want to ask you, and I want you to answer it honestly, maybe even out loud. What is the emotional sun your mind is currently orbiting? Is it fear? Anger? Guilt? Is it hope, love, gratitude? Because whatever it is, it's shaping your entire experience of reality. And most people never stop to ask this. They spend their whole lives changing the planets, trying to replace one belief with another without ever addressing the gravitational center. That's like trying to fix a solar system by rearranging the moons. It doesn't work. The only way to change your thoughts in a lasting way is to change what they revolve around. This is why you can't fake spiritual growth. You can't skip steps. You can't mask your pain with positive affirmations and expect your life to shift. That's just painting over a broken foundation. And eventually, the cracks will show. The emotions will leak through. The truth will rise. Because truth is not something you can control. It's something you have to feel. And the moment you stop feeling is the moment your truth becomes a prison. Now, I want to share something personal. There was a time when I thought I had it all figured out. I had the answers, the frameworks, the spiritual systems. I was teaching people how to think better, manifest faster, rewire their minds. And it worked for a while. But then something strange happened. I started waking up feeling empty, disconnected, sad. Like I was living in a house I had built with my mind, but my heart had never moved in. And I realized I had created a life that looked enlightened, but felt hollow. Because I was orbiting around pride, around performance, around unhealed grief that I had refused to face. Everything changed the day I broke down. No cameras, no audience, just me, sobbing on the floor, finally admitting that I didn't feel safe in my own emotions, that I was using logic to hide from pain, that I was using control to avoid grief. And in that moment, something cracked open. I saw that my thoughts weren't protecting me. They were imprisoning me, and the key wasn't more thinking. It was more feeling. Hume's insight isn't just a philosophical mic drop. It's a spiritual roadmap. Because if your feelings are the real master of your thoughts, then your inner work must begin with your heart, not your mind. You have to go back to those early wounds, the ones that taught you to think a certain way just to survive, the ones that made you believe you weren't enough, or you were too much, or you had to earn love. Those beliefs didn't come from reason, they came from pain. And if you want to change them, you have to go to where they were born. So here's a practice. The next time you catch a negative thought about yourself, about someone else, about life, don't try to fight it. Don't try to outthink it. Pause. Ask yourself what feeling is living underneath this thought. And when you find it, don't push it away. Sit with it. Hold space for it. Let it speak. Because that emotion is the architect. That emotion is the author. That emotion is the throne your thoughts are kneeling before. And when you listen long enough, something miraculous happens. The emotion begins to soften. it begins to shift. And your thoughts, they start to orbit a new sun, a faster one, a truer one, a brighter one. Suddenly you find yourself thinking thoughts you've never thought before, not because you forced them, but because they're now aligned with a new emotional vibration. That's how real change happens. Not through discipline, but through alignment. Not through force, but through feeling. So let me ask you one final deep question before we go even further. If all your thoughts were erased and only your feelings remained, what kind of world would you be living in? Would it be peaceful? Chaotic? Safe? Terrifying? That emotional world is the real world you're living in because it's the one shaping your experience of everything else. And until you transform that inner world, the outer world will never feel different. No matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you learn. Now you begin to see why spiritual awakening is not about becoming smarter. It's about becoming braver. Brave enough to face the feelings that have been ruling your mind for years. Brave enough to dethrone pain and crown compassion. Brave enough to stop orbiting fear and start orbiting love. Because when your emotional gravity shifts, so does your entire reality. The final switch, how feeling first unlocks the mind and liberates the soul. Now we reach the heart of it. The final switch. This is where most people turn back, not because they don't want truth, but because truth requires something we've been trained to avoid: feeling first. Not thinking deeper, not knowing more, but feeling more deeply than we ever have before. And here's the paradox. The moment you begin to feel with full awareness, your thoughts don't become chaotic, they become clear. They align. They soften. They become instruments of your heart instead of weapons of your ego. Because in this final switch, we stop trying to use the mind to control the heart. And instead, we let the heart become the compass that guides the mind. You see, the mind is like a sword, sharp, precise, powerful. But a sword in the hands of fear will always cut the wrong things. A sword in the hands of grief will slash at healing. A sword in the hands of pride will destroy connection. But when that same sword is held by compassion, by clarity, by peace, it becomes something sacred. And the only way to shift the hand that holds the sword is by changing the feeling behind it. That's why Hume's truth is so dangerous to the ego. Because it means we can no longer pretend that we're objective, that we're purely logical, that we're above emotion. No, we are not above emotion. We are built on it. We are carried by it. And until we honor that, we will stay lost in cycles of thinking that lead nowhere. So how do we live this? How do we make this real? First, we stop trying to control our thoughts like external enemies. Thoughts are not the problem. They're the messengers. They're the symptoms. They're the language your emotions are trying to speak through. So instead of resisting the thought, decode it. Ask, what is this thought trying to protect me from? What fear is underneath it? What desire is driving it? And then go there. Go to the place the mind is pointing to, but afraid to enter. That's where healing lies. In the room, the thought is guarding. In the emotion, the thought is hiding. Second, we learn the skill of emotional transparency. Not dumping, not dramatizing, but witnessing, feeling without judgment, expressing without performance. This is the spiritual superpower most people never develop because it's not sexy and it doesn't come with instant gratification. but it's the key to unlocking the soul. Imagine waking up every morning, not asking, what do I need to do today? But what do I need to feel today to become more whole? That shift changes everything. Your relationships, your creativity, your leadership, your spirituality. Because suddenly your life is not being steered by unconscious wounds, but by conscious awareness. Third, and this may be the hardest, we must stop making our emotions enemies. We must stop labeling some as negative and others as positive. Emotions are not moral. They are messengers. Anger is not evil. It might be a boundary that was violated. Sadness is not weakness. It might be the soul's way of saying, I need rest. Even fear isn't always bad. Sometimes it's a sacred warning not to betray yourself again. When we stop fighting emotion, it softens. It shows us its wisdom, and then the thoughts that arise from it become wise too. You can't think your way to peace, but you can feel your way there. So I want to leave you with this. The next time you're lost in your head, pause. Close your eyes. Put your hand on your chest. And ask, what do I feel that I haven't felt yet? What emotion is trying to speak through this thought? And then feel it, fully, with reverence, with presence, with humility. And watch how your thoughts begin to shift, not because you forced them, but because you healed the feeling beneath them. That's the final switch. That's the liberation Hume pointed to but didn't finish. And it's up to us to walk the rest of the way. Because in the end, the mind is not the master, it's the mirror. And what it reflects is the state of your heart. If the heart is broken, the thoughts will be fragmented. If the heart is afraid, the thoughts will be defensive. But if the heart is free, the thoughts will become wings. They will lift you, guide you, serve you. And you will no longer live from the illusion of control, but from the power of alignment. So I ask you one final question, and I want you to carry this into every moment of your life. What would change if you stopped trying to control your thoughts and started healing your feelings? Because that's where the real journey begins. Not in the mind, but in the sacred, infinite, mysterious world of the heart, where truth doesn't need to be proven because it's felt. And when you finally feel it, you'll know. You'll just know.